Hello, welcome back. Here's the video that I promised after my first sewing 101. Now, this is a pretty quick tutorial. I'm gonna make, the pillow I'm making today is 12 by 12. You can do, however big or small you want. Just remember, the bigger you get, the more stuffing you're gonna buy, and stuffing can get kind of pricey. So kind of keep that in mind when you're trying to make your pillow. But I'm gonna do 12 by 12, simple. I already have my fabric prepped. I cut it out and everything. Another thing you can do if you wanna kind of just skip that step and go just directly to making the pillow, at Joann's or most fabric stores, they sell fat quarters. And usually fat quarters are pre-cut sections of fabric that you can just buy. And what you can do is just fold it over like a sandwich and then let that dictate how big your pillow is gonna be. But in my case, I wanted 12 by 12, so that's what I measured out. So I have my pins, my scissors, I have a pen because I wanted to show you the allowance. I'm gonna do 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I have my batting. Let me explain. I got this pillow at an antique shop and I try to fix it because some of this was falling off. I bought new batting, and lo and behold, my dog jumped on it and it just tore. It just jumped on it because that's how brittle the fabric was, and it just tore. So I'm going to reuse the stuffing that I had, and I had bought brand new stuffing. As you could tell, I'm kind of irritated about this pillow. I'm gonna reuse the stuffing so it's clean. It's not like an old 30-year-old stuffing, and I'm gonna use that for my pillow. Of course, you can buy your own stuffing brand new. There's 10 ounce, 16 ounce, 20 ounce. The higher the ounces, the more denser that stuffing is gonna be, and the less you'll need more of it, and it'll be like a really flimsy, floppy pillow because it's not as dense. So remember, the higher the ounces, the better quality of denseness the stuffing is gonna be. So come down here, let me show you what we're gonna do. So here we are. I'm going to do 1/2 inch seam allowance. I believe in the first video I did for you guys, seam allowance is basically the space between the edge of the fabric and where you actually stitch. You don't want to be really close, because once you start pulling apart that fabric, turn it inside out, the fibers are just going to get loose, and then you're going to end up making a hole. So that's why you want to kind of do 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, just to make sure as it gets tension, it doesn't get loose and pull away and make a hole. Like, there's too much distance if you do 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch for that to happen. So I'm gonna take this giant ruler because I can't find my baby ones. And I'm just gonna go from the edge of the fabric down, and I'm just gonna measure 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Now I'm just doing this to kind of help you, but remember, our ruler lines the guides that are on the plate of the sewing machine. I hope by now you've been practicing what I showed you on paper, and you know what the distance is on your machine. Because remember, like on mine was like the line with the number 4 on it on the plate on my Singer indicates 1/2 inch. And like the more I go left, the smaller that measurement is. So I'll just do a couple here so you can see. If you want to mark the whole thing so you have a better visual, a better guide, you can totally do that. It just takes more time, but it's time well spent either way. So now that we're doing that, so also when we're making our pillow, I highly suggest that you leave the opening for your stuffing somewhere in the middle. Don't ever do it around the corner, because it's going to look really ugly. There's really no way, unless you want the biggest headache on earth, to have the hole in the corner and close it that way. But I strongly suggest not to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just have a space here. And what I like to do sometimes too is I'll put my hand, so I know that my hand will fit through this pillow when I turn it inside out, because you don't want to have like an itty bitty little hole and you're just struggling to put the stuffing in it. So make sure, you know, you can put your hand down and measure how wide that's going to be where you're going to stop sewing at, so you can stuff your pillow. So let me just pin this. I hope your machine is threaded, ready to go. Hopefully with matching thread, so that way nothing is, you know, alarming, screaming at you in a different color when you turn this pillow inside out and start stuffing it. Because sometimes if you get it really fat, you could see the threads, and it just looks nicer when there's matching thread. So let me just pin this. I'm gonna pin it all around. And if this is your first time watching this video and you haven't seen my first one, the next project after this is going to be turning a long sleeve shirt into a short sleeve shirt. I think it's a pretty good range of the next level of sewing in your beginning journey here, if this is your first time sewing. So that'll be the next project after this. I hope to put these videos out pretty quickly after this one, the other one, because it is Halloween, and if you didn't know, that is my most busiest time of the year. I am usually busy from the beginning of August to October the 1st. So I'd like to get this out to you in case you want to, you know, make yourself something simple for Halloween, like a sash or a mask, or just, you know, something, you know, that you could do. All right, ready to go. Let's go to the machine. Let's start at the first opening for our hand, and then we'll end at the other opening. So I'm gonna put my edging on my number 4 line, because that is 1/2 inch for my machine. Lower the needle. Now, for your learning pleasure, the top thread you're gonna see stitching is pink, so you could see like how nice it looks, you know, in comparison to if you just chose some random thread. But the underside is black, so that way you can also see the seam allowance, all that stuff. So just keep that in mind. That's for your learning pleasure, okay? Let's go. And keep in mind the corner is coming up, and I marked it so I know where to stop. Right there. And we learned this in the first video. But again, if this is your first time, what we're going to do now is I'm going to keep the needle down. I'm going to lift the foot. I am going to rotate. Align myself back on my 1/2 inch seam allowance line. Put the foot down and continue. I'm approaching the other side of my opening, so I'm just gonna go right up to it. And then I'm gonna back stitch a little bit, just a couple. And I do that because when I flip this inside out, I'm gonna be kind of rough with this opening. And if you don't back stitch it, the hole's just going to widen more and you have more hand sewing to do. So I like to back stitch it just to give myself a break, so I don't have to close the opening that got bigger than what it was before. So I'm just taking out my little needles. Look at this. So now we're done with sewing it. Before we turn it, hold on, don't get ahead of yourself yet. We need to clip the corners. When we turn this pillow inside out, if we don't clip the corners, it's gonna have like rounded corners. It's not gonna be sharp or looking very neat. Of course, you don't have to. It's not gonna ruin your pillow, but for the sake of learning, doing things right, let's go ahead and clip the corners. Now let me show you. So you go, well, what does it look like? What's the difference? Here, I'm gonna flip it inside out first. And then I'm going to try and poke out the corners before I clip them. And then you tell me if you see a difference. Because I know sometimes we got to see it to believe it, to understand. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so here's the pillow flipped out. Here's the corner. Now I am going to try and push it out with, you could use like the end of a pencil or, you know, something blunt-ish so you don't poke a hole in your project. But I'm going to try and just poke a hole. Now that might be fine to you, but you see how it's like kind of rounded, right? Now let me flip this back inside out. Then we're gonna clip the corners, do it again, and you're gonna see that the corner gets much, much sharper. It just looks so much better. And clipping corners is exactly how it sounds. Just gonna get your scissors and you're going to come up to the corner. You're not going to clip past it or clip right on it, because then you're gonna make a hole in the corner of your pillow. So just get close enough, but not actually doing it. Oh, I need to sharpen my scissors. You see what happens when you have dull scissors? Okay, like that close. Okay, so that's all of them. Let's go ahead and flip this inside out now. Use my same tool. Check it out. That's a very sharp corner. I appreciate corners like that. So that's the difference when you just turn it inside out and not clip the corners versus clipping the corners. And of course, like I said, you don't have to on a pillow, but if you start going into, you know, rounder shapes, doing clothing, you really have to clip corners and curves, so that way the fabric behaves how you want, you get the look that you want, because what you're really doing is just clearing up the bulk so it can, you know, take on its true form. Well, let's go ahead and go back to my kitchen where there's better lighting, and I'll show you how to manually close the opening of your pillow after stuffing it. I think I'll give this pillow to my grandma. Okay, so I'm gonna tear this. I'm done trying to fix this pillow. But that's my problem, not you guys. So I'm gonna take my stuffing and I'm just, you just start stuffing. You know what I'm saying? Let's do it. And what you want to do too, start pushing the stuffing up into the corners. So that way you don't have like a fat pillow and then these little corners that are like, mwah. Sometimes if it's not getting dense enough in the corners, I'll take like a ruler and I'll just kind of like stab the corners. And don't be afraid to really manhandle your pillow. If you did your 1/2 inch seam allowance or bigger, and of course your machine is sewing properly. If there's a tension issue, there could still be a hole that happens. But if everything is good, you should be able to be real rough with your pillow and like really fill out those corners, okay? So I'm gonna finish stuffing this and I'll be right back. All right, so my pillow is stuffed, ready to be sewn. So this is how I teach this. What I like to do is I want to make sure that you stuffed it well, but not enough that you can't do this. Like if I pull the corner, see how it kind of wants to close? So it's pretty good. I'm closed. So it's closed, right? Or at least you can pull the corners and it'll close on its own. When we thread the needle right now, so we can do the hand sewing, what I like to do when I'm like, once I get it started, I like to hold it in my armpit and then I kind of pull it to close it. And then I can, like, it helps. Because it's really hard to try and sew it when it's gaping open and all it wants to do is stay open. So if you do it like this and pull it, it wants to close and it's like somebody is helping you like do this and hold it so that way you can sew it. So that's how I do it. So let me get the needle and thread prepped and then I'll move the camera so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I have my needle threaded with my little knot at the end. So let's get this started and then we can do the armpit method and then just sew from there. So let's start from this end. Oh, and just, again, I just want you to see, like, if you choose to not have all the same matching thread, see how you could see the black thread in mine? Of course, I did this intentionally, but if you did, you know, top and bottom matching thread, it just looks much cleaner and seamless and neater. So just wanted to point that out to you. So what I like to do is I will start on the corner and make sure that this is folded in. You know what I mean? So when you're catching it, it's like already folded. So I'm going to get the inside. I start from the inside so that way the knot gets hidden inside the pillow. Okay, and what we're gonna do today is like what's called a whip stitch. So it's like a top spiral stitch to close our pillow. I know there's like the ladder and there's other stuff, but let's keep it simple. Let's do this one. So right now I have the, oops, I pulled it too hard. And that happens. Hold on, let me start this again. So even I make mistakes, I pull too hard. So at this point, don't pull too hard because then you'll learn from my mistake and then the knot just comes out. I'm going to go over and I'm going to come to this side of the pillow. And I'm going to try and sort of stay close to the edge so it's a clean whip stitch. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't look all nuts. So I'm going to come out and I'm going to pull. I like to get it started like this because at this point you could still kind of pull hard and rip the knot out. So let's do it one more time before we switch to armpit method. So now I'm going to go on this side of the pillow From the inside, I'm gonna just try and stay close and catch the inside and come out. And I pull slowly, because if you pull fast, sometimes all this extra thread starts knotting and then you can't pull the whole thing through. So now I'm gonna come to this side of the pillow. I'm gonna get kind of close to where I had that last stitch. I'm just gonna scoot over, try and stay relatively at the top. And on this one, I'm gonna pull hard. And see how it's hard to do it when you're by yourself, which is why I like the armpit method. But now that we're pretty good to go, I'm gonna switch to armpit method. Okay, so now I can kind of go fast. So I'm gonna go back under to this side. My gosh, you can't even see it. I'm gonna come over here, top. And here's where you start getting a little bit of speed at this point. So now you can see I just crossed completely over. And then I can start pulling tighter. You know, I should get close to the camera here, huh? I'm sorry. See, that to me that's too far. I'm gonna get a little bit closer like that. And once we get to the end, then I will show you how we're gonna close it, what I do to hide the knot on that end and all that. I have reached the end. Let me try and get my camera to focus. I don't know if it can focus. Can you see that? All right. Here we are. So here is where I am. If you could see some of those black dots of thread on the left side, that's the end of the opening. So this is what I do when I close the pillows, okay? So I put a pin where the end of the opening is. It's gonna be kind of difficult to see. I should have done this in black thread to show you guys, but it's all right. So I already did my final stitch. So what I'm gonna do now to secure that is I'm going to go back in this direction on top, catching some of those top spiral whip stitches in, I don't know if you could see it, on the needle. So I'm gonna pull this through. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm just catching the thread. I'm not trying to catch the pillow or anything like that. Then, before I pull this all the way through, I'm going to, hold on, let me stand this up. I'm going to go through that and create a knot. Okay? Now this knot is pretty tiny. You can't see it. But what we're gonna do is hide the leftovers, because you don't want to have like the two little bunny ears that you cut off at the end of your threads, and then eventually just by friction it rubs down into the knot and then the knot opens. At least that's how I do it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it short-ish, not all the way down, but just enough. Let me use my shirt as a, so about that much. Hope you can see it. Then what I do is I'll get another needle thicker than the one that I was using, something about this. And then what I will do is I will try to catch these two threads, push them in between stitches, and just hide it within the pillow. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm trying to push them down. Sometimes I have to use 2 because they don't want to listen. There we go. Finally. They're underneath the head of this needle. I have it kind of like upside down. And I pushed it in between the stitching. I'm just gonna take this pin out because that was just to indicate where the end of the hole was for you guys, because it's kind of hard because I use pink thread. Fabric's pink. Everything's hiding. So we did it. We finished the pillow. We did it. Finished. We closed it up. And it's nice and fat. Probably have to take a lint roller right now because some of the stuffing, you know, it gets on top of the pillow and you can kind of like, you can see. But I'm just being super, you know, perfectionist about this. But yeah, you just made a pillow. You should be proud of yourself. My pillow's nice and dense because I believe I had bought a 16-ounce stuffing for this other horrible pillow that I'm just gonna have to use the rest of the stuffing for. But yeah, guys, so you made your own pillow. Very proud of you. The other video will come next week for the shirt. I hope you stay tuned and make yourself a pillow. All right, thanks so much for watching. Bye.